Thanks for coming along, everyone. The day is getting on, so it's the last session we have here in Seminar Room 1 of the Rhode Island Graduate Careers Fair, and a very interesting subject. So, employment rights and opportunities for international students. It has to be some of the most commonly requested information that we get with Grad Ireland. I know there's a lot of, and listen, people in this room know a lot more than me, I know. Obviously studying and working, living through the process. But I'm delighted to welcome our panellists. We have Orla Barry from QQI and Shane Mooney from DBS, who's the chair of the Council of Irish Council of International Students. Yes. So I'm really happy to have them both here today, and we'll be talking about qualifications and how they map from outside the European Union into qualifications in the European Union. And Shane will be talking about employment rights, student visas, and we'll also have time for questions at the end. And if we're discussing something and you feel that you've got something to add or a question that will inform the discussion, please just put your hand up and we'll do it that way, because I know there's a lot of information both up here and also in the audience. So just so you know who our panellists are. Shane, tell us a bit about your work with the Council of International Students and what it is that the body actually does.
Perfect, yes, Rory. But one of the main things that the ICOS do is they run on behalf of the government the fellowship programme, which is with a great joy last weekend over just in the hotel here on the grounds of welcoming 200 fellows from all around the world. They come in on an Irish government sponsorship programme, they complete a postgraduate degree, and then they take that knowledge back to their developing countries. So that's one of the main pieces. And then secondly, the ICOS advocate on behalf of all international students in Ireland, and they also will deal with any queries or anything that an international student or any grievances that an international student may have. They can contact ICOS, who will help them out with that.
Okay, and how long has the body been established and how many students would it represent?
ICOS has been, I think we were meant to have the 40th anniversary last year, but we postponed because of COVID. So we'll have a 41-year anniversary this year. It represents all international students. The board is made up of predominantly third-level institutions. So I'd be sitting on behalf of DBS, the Irish, the USI University Students Ireland. They sit on behalf of students, and we've got a number of the universities and third-level institutions sitting on the board as well, and as the membership.
Orla, tell us a bit about QQI and how it's relevant to the discussion in terms of qualifications.
Yeah, no problem. So QQI is a state agency in Ireland with responsibility for the reputation and integrity of our qualification system. We kind of have a number of hats we wear. So we're a quality assurance agency for universities and institutes of technology. We're an awarding body for private providers, so we make the awards of DBS and other private institutions, and we're also the qualifications authority, so we regulate access to the national framework of qualifications, so ensuring that all of our qualifications are consistent, coherent and comparable to each other. We also run a number of kind of other roles at a European level. So we're the National Europass Centre, which provides information across Europe on qualifications and job opportunities. We are the national coordination point for the European Qualifications Framework. So the Irish National Framework is referenced to that European Qualifications Framework. And we are also the NARIC Centre, which is the National Academic Recognition Information Service. So if you're looking to have a qualification from overseas compared to the Irish system, you can access our NARIC service, which has 1,500 qualification comparability statements available on it right now.
Sorry,
Brian Hearn from Irish Council for International Students.
Brian's also from the Irish Council for International Students as well, so thanks Brian for joining us here today.
No worries.
So, Orla, if we could just expand that a little bit. And the person with the least knowledge in this room is me, so if I ask the question wrong, please just correct me. When it comes to mapping qualifications, when you're mapping, say, a third-level qualification outside the European Union, is it all the same, or does it depend on where the qualification comes from? Just explain a little bit how that works.
Yeah, so it depends a little bit on where the qualification comes from. So we have a national framework, which is a 10-level framework that explains qualifications at major and minor levels, and we have those associated with kind of a depth of knowledge, skill and competence. And we use information from other countries, ideally with national frameworks themselves, where we can understand what their qualification framework says about a qualification, and we map it to ours. It's done at a relatively high level. We only offer kind of an academic service comparability statement, and the actual comparisons are more or less done by higher education institutions, so they'll do the really in-depth mapping of a qualification in terms of what you know, what you can do, and whether that fits with what you're trying to access from an academic perspective here. We do have regional qualifications frameworks, so we have a European qualification framework which explains all of the European qualifications, and if there is another regional qualification framework, we can use that to compare against the European framework. Ireland has done comparability mapping with all of the jurisdictions of the UK, so we know what level an Irish qualification corresponds to in the UK, and we've done the same for Hong Kong and New Zealand, so those are available, but then we will do a one-to-one service for each qualification that is requested for a comparability statement.
And how do students request this?
So they just go online onto our QQI website, find the NARIC service. There are 1,500 already available to download, so if you find that your bachelor's degree from China is already there, you can download a comparability statement which tells anyone what we consider the equivalent level to be. If it's not up there, you submit all of the information and we'll produce a comparability statement for you.
And NARIC, that's N-A-R-I-C?
N-A-R-I-C.
Okay, anyone any questions on that just as we're going? No? Okay. I'm hoping Brian's microphone's working because we haven't got our AP guy here. But Brian, tell us a bit about what some of the most common queries you would get with the Irish Council of International Students.
In general.
You're okay, guys?
On the panel we have the chairperson of the Irish Council of International Students, so I'm not sure if he's had an opportunity to just give a bit of an overview
Yeah,
about
he's
what...
given an overview.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, the most common queries that ICOS would receive through our advocacy work would be in relation to immigration issues. So that could be to do with visa queries, trying to get an appointment with immigration, employment, all sorts of issues.
Okay, so I mean, obviously it's a very person by person case, but
Yeah.
and how do people get in touch with the council?
At the moment, we only operate an email service, so if anyone wants to get in touch with us about an employment query or an immigration issue or whatever that might be, you can go on to www.internationalstudents.ie, and there's a contact form. There's actually a lot of information on the website that could be very useful in terms of immigration, employment, living in Ireland, etc.
Okay, great. Thanks, Brian. Okay, Shane, just to go back to basics, what rights do international students have? Say someone is starting their undergrad here or just finishing undergrad here. What rights do they have if they are living and studying in Ireland in terms of, how does the visa system work? What are they entitled to in terms of work? And how does the further process in terms of further study and more permanent work?
Perfect. Yeah, what I might start by saying is these are the immigration rules, not the college or the university rules. So that's the first thing, and that's really important. And we can't change the rules. So just to say that first of all. So once you arrive in Ireland as an international student on an international student visa, the first thing you've got to do before you can work is you have to register your visa. So you have to you're asked to register your visa within 3 months of arrival in Ireland. You cannot work until you have got your IRP card, which you get when you register your visa. Once you registered your visa, you are then entitled to work 20 hours a week during term and 40 hours a week during holidays. Now the holidays are very specific. They're June, July, August and September, and from the 15th of December to the 15th of January. So it's 40 hours within those times, and it's 20 hours a week outside of those times. That 20 hours a week includes during dissertation. So if you're a postgraduate student and you're not physically in college anymore because you're at dissertation, you are still only entitled to work 20 hours a week, and it also is while waiting for results. So that's again is a really important thing. So if you're waiting for results, you can only go to 40 hours a week to full-time work once you've actually changed from a student visa to a 1G postgraduate visa, which entitles you to stay back, which is 40 hours a week.
Okay, and Brian, just in terms of applying for that next visa for a postgrad study, how long can that take, or when should students who are maybe in final year now, when should they start applying for that?
Well, you can only apply to renew your visa 30 days before your IRP card is due to expire. So basically, you need, as Shane commented, you need to have your results in order to apply. But you also need to, you need to wait until your IRP card is due to expire. But in any case, you should definitely be inquiring with the international office at your college for any information that you might need to know about applying for the Stamp 1G, and also just in relation to getting your results and when they might become available.
Rory, the rules on the 1G visa are, it's very, very specific. Again, this is the immigration rules, and it ties into Orla and to QQI. The rules are very specific that you have to have successfully completed the program for which you have enrolled. So that doesn't include a postgraduate extra award if you haven't completed the program for whatever reason. The rule is you have to have successfully completed. So you can't apply for your 1G or your stay-back visa until you have fully completed and you've got a letter from your college or your university saying that you have successfully completed that program.
Okay, and so obviously from what you've said there, I assume there's quite a few pitfalls or instances where people do not follow that process. What are some of the most common pitfalls?
One of the most common mistakes that people make is that they may start looking for a full-time job very early on in their college, in their university journey here in Ireland. So, for example, we're in September now. We see all these wonderful companies outside, and they all take on international students once they've qualified, or take on international students for summer interns, which is fine. But there's no point, if you've just started in college now as a postgraduate, there is no point in applying for a job with AWS or Microsoft or any of these companies until very close to the time that you have completed your program. The reason is that you might be successful in getting through the interview process. You might get to final interview, and the company will then ask you what's your visa status, and say, well, I'm sure I can change my visa. You can't change your visa unless a company is sponsoring you. So you're here to study. You have to complete your studies before you can get a job. So one of the most common things that we see is students asking to step off a program because they've got a full-time job very early in their time on that program, and that is not allowed. And it's, it would be seen as a shortcut to get into Ireland to work if it was allowed.
Okay. Orla, just to take back to the qualifications piece, why does mapping of qualifications matter from outside the use? People may think, well, I'll be studying an undergrad here and I'll take it from there. But I suppose the value of the qualification is always relevant. So.
Yeah, so the importance of mapping qualifications is understanding how you can compare qualifications from different jurisdictions. So we have a very well established national framework of qualifications here. It's very well understood what a bachelor's degree is, what it looks like, what it leads to, even how long it took, how many credits, which is associated with workload. So we all understand that really well. But other countries, even the United States, don't have national frameworks of qualifications. So it's up to each university how they design their programs. So the reason we care about mapping is because we want to make sure that there is a comparability, so that people who've worked hard here to get a level 8 degree, that if someone comes in from another country, that their degree that they're claiming as a bachelor's degree is as good, has as much knowledge, has led to the same types of learning outcomes. So it's about consistency and clarity, and it's important for employers that they know what they're getting with a graduate and what that qualification is offered. So I would encourage you to also understand what your qualification is, what it allowed you to do, where it sits on our national framework of qualifications, because as I said, it's really easily understood here, but if you try to travel, you may have to explain a little bit more about what your qualification means. So really understanding it, having access to your qualification documents. The European Diploma Supplement is freely issued with every qualification in Ireland at level 8, and that diploma supplement has more information about your qualification than any other piece of information you're going to get from your university. Your degree cert is in Latin in lots of cases, which is of no use to anybody at all. Whereas the diploma supplement talks about the level, the credits, the modules you took, some of the learning outcomes, and it states what the level is here, what the level is on the European qualifications framework. So that's a really useful document. So make sure you get it from your university. It's usually, or your college, it's usually digitally provided to you, but just make sure you have that diploma supplement, because that is the most useful piece of information about your qualification.
Thanks very much, Orla. That's great.
Can I just come back quickly to one thing I said about the Stamp 1G? So normally when you need to renew your IRP card, the system only allows you to renew it when you're 30 days. You only have 30 days left. But just to clarify, once you have received your results and you're in a position to apply for Stamp 1G, you should do that immediately. Don't wait until your card is due to expire.
And it's done online?
Yeah.
Okay, anyone any questions that we've covered here? So a question here at the back. So someone here has a letter saying that they completed the 1G, but they don't have a transcript. the full transcript, is that sufficient, or?
You don't need the full transcript. The letter from your university or college is confirmation that you've completed the program successfully, and you would have that in conjunction with your results, which was probably sent out to you electronically.
Thanks, Shane. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? We're here. I don't know, Brian or Shane, if I want to take this. Maybe Shane, if I can put it to you. We hear a lot about sponsorship. How does sponsorship work from an organisation's perspective? And has the process become easier in terms of what's required and supports for companies? I'm thinking maybe SMEs that may not have entire departments dedicated to these situations.
Yeah, what I might start off by saying is that sponsorship is not applicable in most instances for international learners who are coming here on student visas. Sponsorship is for skills that are in need in the country. So it is difficult to get sponsorship, and you won't get sponsorship. Very rarely will you get sponsorship to come off a full-time program in a university or college to get to switch to work. It very rarely happens. It's for specific employment types such as doctors, nurses, and certain where there are recognised skills shortages. So it's not a pathway. Again, we've got to be careful and distinguish between those of you who are here as international students on international student visa. It's not a shortcut to get to work. You're here the best pathway to get to work is to complete your program. So and once you complete your program and you qualify and you get your 1G visa, you then don't need sponsorship for undergraduate 1 year or postgraduate 2 years, because you automatically can work for those times without sponsorship from a company.
Okay. And if someone does have the right to live and work in Ireland, Brian, do they have the same right to live and work in the UK?
No, unfortunately not. Ireland and the UK are separate jurisdictions, separate countries, so a student visa in Ireland will not grant you any work entitlements to work in the UK.
That would be the long road of Irish citizenship.
Yeah, and just to add to the points that Shane made, so I mean, the idea is, you're here as international students, you complete your program, that opens up the path to go on the Stamp 1G visa, and then from there you'll get work experience, and hopefully you could be in a position then where you could get sponsorship, either a general work permit or critical skills work permit.
I'd just say, again, back to the regulation piece, the only instance where that may be different is if there is a work placement element of your program, but it has to be a credit bearing, i.e. it has to be an integral part of your program. The rules are slightly different for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, Orla. I think the placement can't be more than 50% of your entire program, but that's the only instance where you can work more than the allowable hours of 20 or 40. So there, and that would be for, as I said, if there is a placement and it's credit bearing, but your university or college will tell you about that, and you will know about it. If in the documentation that you've got or in your course handbooks, it doesn't say placement in your course handbook and it's not credit bearing, there's no point in coming to the careers office or the international office and saying, I want to do a placement because it's very important for my degree. Unless it's credit bearing, it's not important for the degree in immigration's eyes. So that's the only instance, but you've got to make sure that it is a credit bearing placement.
Okay, that's interesting. And is there any changes to the legislation expected, or I mean, just thinking that are there changes afoot in terms of how either of these, any of these elements are discussed?
I wouldn't say so, to be honest with you. Like, ultimately what international students are doing when they're coming into Ireland, they're coming to study full time. So you've got to be available full time. It's from 9 o'clock on a Monday morning to 5 o'clock on a Friday evening. You've got to be available to attend your classes. And this is an obligation of us as institutions by the regulators, and we have to comply with the rules. So one of the things that is going to be coming down the line, now that a lot of you are back, all of you are back on campus again, that attendance on campus is going to become important again. Full attendance is a requirement of your student visa. It is not I hate saying bad things, but it is not an excuse it's not an excuse not to attend a lecture or a class because you were working. It's not an excuse, and it's not acceptable. And if the regulator or if immigration who would be come in and say, well, listen, is this student attending classes every Wednesday from 10 in the morning to 3 o'clock? And we're saying, no, what reason? Well, the student told us it's because they've got a part-time job. That doesn't cut the mustard. You've got to be available for classes when classes are scheduled.
Or is that like, would you like to add on that? No.
No.
That's wrong enough message.
Anyone any questions on that?
Question regarding the critical skill employment permit and
Critical skills employment permit. Yeah.
If the job is a graduate program, is it because some big companies they run the graduate program? Is it also? I'm not sure. It is a little different with the fixed position for the full-time job, but it still fits the requirement of the
Critical skills.
critical skill.
It's a good question.
It depends on the role. Depends on the role and your company. And again, if you look outside at the wonderful employers outside, if you're meeting a role that's meeting a critical skill, they want to keep you. They're the ones that you talked about that. But just again, the differentiation that when you complete your program as a graduate, you automatically can apply for the stay-back scheme, which means it doesn't have to be a critical skill to work here for 1 year as an undergraduate or 2 years as a postgraduate. But if it's a critical skill and the employer wants to keep you, they will advise you through that, and they'll go through that because they have to do a sponsorship letter and they have to do the application or they've got to support your application.
And who makes in terms of the critical skills judgment? Who's the arbiter of that?
It's immigration, the Department of Justice, who Immigration Services Delivery run the program, but it's the Department of Justice that set the rules.
Okay.
The immigration, you probably know the website. The immigration website is absolutely fantastic. They revamped it quite recently, and it's very easy to follow and see your entitlements, what you can and can't do. I think. Do you know the website? The
Immigration Service Delivery.
Sorry?
Immigration Service Delivery is the name of the website.
Immigration Service Delivery.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, is anyone any other questions in relation to their own situation or problems that come across? No? Sorry. I'm hearing things at this stage. But,
Someone there has a question.
sorry, I'm not hearing things. Sorry, if you don't mind.
If we have just 1 year of 1G visa and the graduate program is like 3 years, they could sponsor us just the end of the graduate program. For it, they will not do it. So how we can finish our graduate program without the visa if we have no time in the country?
So say the question again, sorry.
Like
1
the
year.
graduate program basically are like 2 or 3 years
Yeah.
of graduate program. But we have just 1 year of 1G visa. We need to finish the graduate program and then they need to sponsor us. Because before we finish the graduate program, it's almost impossible to get a sponsor visa. We have to finish before the
But in order to get the graduate program, you not need to have been sponsored to get the
No, like I can start as a graduate program as a 1G visa, but I don't have the 1G visa until the end of the graduate program. And they just sponsor us after we finish. Like after 3 years, we have the whole graduate program and then they sponsor us. But before that, they don't do it.
Well, not all graduate programs are 3 years. That's the first thing that I'd say. Sorry, the first thing that I'd say is not all graduate programs are 3 years. Some may be 3 years, not all are 3 years. Some may be 6 months, some may be 12 months. So that's the first thing. We've got to differentiate between a graduate program that's run by a company and the rules, the visa rules. And the visa rules are again, coming back to it, they're set by the Department of Justice. They're run by Immigration Service Delivery. They are very inflexible. So if you want to you could go into a company not on a graduate program but on something similar, or you could put that question to the company that if after a period of time they would be willing to sponsor you to extend, to sponsor you so you could stay working with them. You would need to ask that of the company themselves. That's something that's outside of the university or the college or the regulator's remit. It's whether the company would be willing to sponsor you after a period of time. So you need to ask them that directly if they have a 3-year graduate program. Okay.
Do you feel that employers are struggle with the scale?
Without a doubt. A lot of employers now. This being accepted because all of the companies that are here have a lot of experience of taking on graduates and working with international students. But a lot of companies, a lot of the SME sector don't understand the 1G, the stay-back process or the stay-back program. They're afraid to take international students on because they don't know whether they can or not. They think they might need to sponsor, which they don't need to while the student is on stay-back. So there is an education piece there. We work very hard as institutions to get out that education piece with employers, to talk to them and say, listen, we've got this great bank of students who've come from abroad, who come in most instances have come with massive amounts of experience, a lot more so than a lot of the Irish students that are in next door at the moment. And you can employ these. You can take these students on who are coming with massive skills and massive benefit, and coming with that cultural diversity as well, and that difference. So there is an educational piece for employers as well, and all of the institutions work really hard to get that message out there.
Okay. Or if there's one takeaway in relation to the whole QQI piece and its relevance to international students from this session, what would you say it is?
I think it's really understanding your qualifications. So our job is to give information about your qualifications. So going online, looking at the National Framework of Qualifications, understanding what we're saying about your qualification, be it a level 7 or a level 8, even understanding what are the other progression opportunities if you're choosing to study after your undergraduate degree, understanding the difference. We run Qualifax, which is the learner information database. So every learning opportunity in the country is listed on Qualifax. So if studying is your next step, you can go on there and find out more about courses and opportunities. So I think really the takeaway message is understanding what your qualification says, what its level is, what that means, what it says about your knowledge, your competence, your skills, and being able to articulate that.
And Orla, if you did an undergrad here and then you wanted to do a postgrad in Milan, by mapping your qualification previous to what you're into here will make your
and the beauty of the EU is it's all mapped. We're all referenced to the One European Qualifications Framework. So our qualifications framework here is 10 levels. The EQF is an 8-level framework, and every country in the EU has mapped to the EQF, so we can translate qualifications in the EU very, very simply. And as I said, we can do it for the UK as well now that they're not in the EU, because we do have a qualifications can cross boundaries document that explains what your qualification means in the UK.
So QQI.ie, discover information that you can even download
comparability statements if you have a qualification from overseas that you want compared to Ireland.
Get onto the embassy, you better off just go straight to you guys.
If you want information about qualifications, QQI is where you go.
Okay. Any questions on?
So what happens in second year? Like, are you supposed to take sponsorship if you didn't get it in the first year, or do you apply for a new job with sponsorship? Or do you continue that job with no sponsorship in the second year? I'm an undergrad, so...
You're undergrad, okay. So you're entitled to 1 year stay back, and then if you wanted to continue on, after that, you would need companies to sponsor you,
Okay. Question in the back here, sir? I'll shout it up. Okay. Do you have to apply for your 1G while your 2G is still valid, or do you have to wait until after graduation?
You have to apply while...
Sorry, maybe just shout it. I'll only butcher it again.
You should be applying for your 1G as soon as you pass your programs. That's when you should be applying. As soon as you get certification that you've completed your program, you should be applying for your 1G. There's a very simple reason why that is. The rules of the student visa are that you have to be a full-time student and full-time education. When you complete your program, i.e. when you get your results, you stop being a student of the college because you've finished, so you're not in full-time education anymore. So technically speaking, you're in Ireland without a visa, so that's why you need to apply for your 1G as soon as you get your results and you successfully complete your program. And we'd like to think that you guys want to get into full-time employment straight away, so therefore it makes sense to apply for it at that stage.
Any final questions, guys?
I think it really depends on the higher education institute, because each education provider has their own interpretation of the rules for non-EU fees versus EU fees. But in general, if you're a tax resident in Ireland for 3 of the last 5 years, then you qualify for the EU fees.
Also, for PhDs in Ireland, not that many students pay PhD fees because there's funding available to do PhDs. So I'd start your conversation now with your university about what PhD you're interested in, and there may be funding available that would actually pay you to do the PhD.
Okay. Any further questions before we wrap up? We are recording this, so just remember. So
Can I just actually make one final point? Just as maybe a takeaway, some of you might be considering doing a master's, or some of you might, you're finishing your undergrad and you're wondering what you're going to do next. If you really want to be strategic about perhaps studying something that might lead to a critical skills visa, you might consider going on to the Department of Business, Trade and Enterprise, is that?
Yep.
Yeah. And look at the critical skills list of occupations of different types of jobs. Now this list is it's updated frequently, but there's many jobs there. You can kind of get an idea of what sort of areas you could possibly work in if you study in a particular field, particular area of studies.
Okay, thanks so much, Brian. Thanks so much, Orla.
Apologies for arriving late.
A lot of information, no, not at all. A lot of information there. So we will be recording and putting it up on gradireland.com. And thanks to you all for coming along. I hope you got something beneficial from the session. Thanks so much.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.